accounted for, the Berlin bunker body from 1945. 2023 warning, content is distressing. Here is an indicator of how stupid things were in the waiting for Kaiser Adolf's extortionist future fake wife Sadie Einstein and prisoner of war stolen sperm really miscarried ineligible inbred baby to appear, with him trailing behind like a shackled prisoner, Berlin in 1945. They retrieved Isabelle Williams, Fritz' partially decomposed body from the bunker in Berlin in 1945. Williams had been made over to look like Kaiser and Chancellor Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern by a professional film production crew, costumes, makeup. She was made over for photographs and filmed sometime shortly after a terrorism group exposed themselves by name as the neo-Nazis in December 1943, with mass genocides in Germany that caused the death of nearly all members of Germany's parliament that month. She was still made over to look like Kaiser Adolf until her death in mid-1945. She was found dead with a bullet wound to the forehead and chest on top of a female called Janet Podolsky, who was pretending to be a fictitious character called Eva Braun. Isabelle Williams, imposter Adolf Hitler, was half the real Kaiser Adolf's age and was the mother of future convicted serial killer Charles Manson, Manson's father being Albert Einstein. They made the body over to cover up the fatal bullet wounds to the forehead and chest, put some face makeup on it to make it look like a less decomposed corpse and cover the blemishes, straightened up its movie production crew supplied Adolf costume including monogram armbands and then froze it carefully in clear ice like a cryogenics experiment. Frozen so they could see her still made over face and the armbands through the ice, including if they rubbed the frost off the top of any receptacle the body was placed in with a viewing window. It was frozen with its blue eyes open, so it appeared to be staring back at whoever took a look at it, or a photograph. Some of them ended up hoping they could clone Isabelle Fritz, the Adolf impersonator, in the future, who was definitely a female. When she was found dead in the bunker in Berlin in 1945, she was wearing women's shoes, underwear, and a bra. She was also heavily menstruating at the time of her death. Anyone familiar with the television program Prisoner, Cell Block H should think of guard Vinegar Tits Vera if they want a vague approximate of her attitude, but much more insane. The real Kaiser Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern was around double the Berlin bunker body's age and had black, yellow, and red eyes, like the flag of Germany, with turquoise around the outside. Williams was involved in luring literally millions to their deaths between December 1943 and the end of World War II, using a voice impersonation of Kaiser and Chancellor Adolf over the emergency radio broadcast system, which were of much worse audio quality than usual. She was a genuine mass genocide perpetrator. Kaiser Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern was not. One of the conditions Kaiser Adolf set me before he died, that I promised I would adhere to before I publicly mentioned where he was buried to anyone, was that individual found dead in the bunker in Berlin in 1945's body be accounted for. It finally was. I had put it on the furthest back burner, so to speak. It was still quite a relief. Kaiser Adolf is buried in Moe Memorial Cemetery, next to his uncle Kaiser Frederick IV, in Gippsland, Australia, the same place he was born in. After intellectually floating around seemingly right in front of my nose for decades, the body of the genocidal imposter New Zealand-born female was found in a reverse glass-bottomed boat receptacle similar to something out of 2001, A Space Odyssey. In the freezer of a group in Geelong, Victoria, Australia. A group noted for being one of the biggest and most pathetic neo-Nazi accommodating lunatic groups in the world. They help pump out neo-Nazi propaganda for foreign consumption from Australia as one of the main sources of it, whilst pretending to be perennially competitive at sport, as one of the most vulgar cheating filth organizations in the world. Suffice to say their logos have had depicted references to the staring frozen dead body of Isabelle Fritz available for viewing privately on ice in their freezer for decades. One logo even looked like someone took a macabre look at the evil woman's body after an invite, had its face screwed up because of it before and after looking, and then said, that's not really Adolf Hitler, is it? Whoever they were immediately sincerely correctly told that it was really the body from the bunker in Berlin in 1945 though, as if being bragged to. It was located quickly after I finally figured out why they are like a cheating, violent distraction clown show that isn't funny. What a bizarre thing to have to distract people from. Well, the body was finally confiscated as an illegally stored cadaver under Australian law by law enforcement in early 2021. It happened surprisingly quickly after large numbers of responsible types like me all said, oh, that's where it is, like an echo. Quick response from intelligence. Law enforcement, with help, posed as freezer mechanics after observing that the freezer being investigated as the possible place of storage had a pronounced rattle and shimmy. The decision was made to tell them they had to have the freezer repaired, or they might lose everything in it. That all items in the freezer, including the body, would need to be moved via a freezer truck whilst their storage freezer was serviced, then they would put it back safely for them afterwards. After it was confiscated, it was quickly dumped appropriately as an illegally stored corpse in early 2021 in a biological waste landfill, as per the law in Australia. It would have decomposed very quickly after it thawed, as it had been frozen for around 76 years. Over 70 years is a long time to have a frozen body made over by a film production crew to look like Kaiser Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern in the freezer. A tremendous relief, let me tell you, I'm still celebrating. Being the personality type I am, as soon as I quietly probed after realizing where it probably was with an OH, it's in their freezer, with a follow-up, well of course it is. Where it would it have been, everything about them having it there since approximately 20 years or more before I was born fell into place. Logos, diversions, clowning, pretend hypno-magic, players looking like pale dead person via body paint and makeup, every player seeming to have the same blue color frozen looking eyes on their photographs. Comments at me from the crowd as if I watched every game ever played at their home ground on television since I was a toddler. The comments actually had the opposite effect and put me off watching. As a warning though, they kept the Hitler the Hohenzollern monogram flag armbands off the corpse circa 1945 and ran them through the laundry, apparently. I don't want them. They should incinerate them, I think. I probably won't convince them I don't want them if it ever turns into an actual face-to-face conversation. They may pretend the armbands have magic powers to mesmerize people into repeating horrific fiction as if fact if they ever use them for television or film. Losers. Of course the other thing I realized is that it was probably like the broken chip and robot arm depicted in the Terminator 2 Judgment Day movie. They would have been intellectually obliged to make like it was an evil window portal to neo-Nazi origins and several seriously evil ones. A telepathic hotline phone to Einstein and his daughter Charles Manson, for example. Amongst others. It gave them ideas, direction, goals, something to waste their time doing. Connected thoughts to get involved in things that would never had occurred to them otherwise. Caused recruiting decisions, propaganda production, mesmerizing fake magic dabbling, etc. The group involved in having it in their freezer for decades, with matching logos and cadaver makeup, photographs of it and its eyes, etc., still ask for it back occasionally and check regularly to see if it has been returned to their freezer. I don't know how many people had sat next to it over the decades, in furs and extreme cold gear with a laptop or two in the freezer, rubbing the frost off to peer at it through the glass, pretending to have magic powers to mesmerize people after looking at it. Backed up by copious corruption and modern sports terrorism equipment. Rolling down biological waste landfill hill, and it's gone. If anyone wants to see what the evil genocidal maniac looked like after she gave birth to Charles Manson in 1934 and before it assumed the terrorism role of imposter Adolf in 1943, followed by its involvement in mass genocide and its death in 1945, there is a painting depicting it in a pub in called Young and Jackson's across the road from Flinders Street Station. The painting is called Chloe, provided it is still on display there. Chloe is Isabelle Williams. Lunatics, including the remaining dribble of the neo-Nazis, have been trying to force people to go into that pub and look at it for decades, just to see if they can mesmerize people afterwards, particularly if they say the evil creep was pretty, or really Adolf, or something. It is the connection to them pretending their terrorism is art as well, particularly if it has an Einstein theme. It was the last thing that had to be ticked off the list of conditions before I was allowed to tell people where Kaiser Adolf is buried. I was told not to worry about the consequences if I ever did, meaning vandalism and the like. I revealed he is buried in Moe Memorial Cemetery, in my home region of Gippsland, Australia. The same place as he was born in. The small hospital with 2 attic hospital rooms he was born in still exists in Moe as well. When Austrian lunatics, not including my Habsburg ancestors, copied from Australia's name and removed 2 letters as a stalker thing around 1913, they started pretending he was born there instead of what is now called Gippsland, the Yarra Yallah bit. I have a not-so-secret small want to actually repair the gravesites, make them neater and more official. Also leave some type of official markings in tombstone format with factual royal family information. The latter sounds easy, but isn't simply realistic in context. It should be okay to do. The beautiful cemetery itself may be the only Hohenzollern property I own in the southern hemisphere. Adolf's deceased born twin was buried there in April 1889, before his parents Prince Alois and Princess Clara took Prince Edmund and new Prince Adolf back to Germany after their holiday in what is now Gippsland. I have been into the building Kaiser Adolf was born in several times and taken some photographs, including for this book. Obviously, my Hohenzollern royal family does not get the blame for what Albert Einstein's terrorism groups did to my Habsburg and Romanov ancestors. My royal Hohenzollern family, including Kaiser and Chancellor Adolf, was not involved in abducting people for Albert Einstein to torture information out of. The body of Isabelle Williams, Berlin 1945. There are YouTube videos. Absolutely repulsive. The depicted dead late 20s female was made over to look like Kaiser Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern by a professional film production crew who had won awards prior to WW2 for costume design and makeup, like Golden Globes, for example. Some of the people there thought it was a wildly amazing job. The involvement of those film production staff with the neo-Nazis was why some United States of America military knew of Kaiser Adolf being held prisoner in Yugoslavia at the end of WW2. They vandalized Royal Hohenzollern symbols on their way into Germany because he had not reappeared like a shackled prisoner with Sadie Einstein and her inbred extortion plot brat miscarried in April 1944.